Hey, what's up, Stringalings? Today, we're actually going to set up a complete Donner pedal board from front to back, the whole thing. Donner has asked me to do this using nothing but Donner pedals just to demonstrate how their pedals sound as part of a rig, and I think it's a fantastic idea, so let's get started. If you've been following the channel for a few months, you'll know that I've done a few Donner pedals here and there. I've done some of their guitars just as reviews and demos, and they make really great products. And honestly, some of them are on my board pretty much permanently. So what Donner has asked me to do is arrange pedals in the proper order, which is the question I get probably most often when I do a pedal video. Where do I put it in my chain? It's really actually very straightforward, but there are a few bits and pieces that you might be missing, or there are a few actual odds and ends, the actual physical equipment that you need to put a pedal board together, and we're going to cover all of that in this video. So stay tuned, stick around. We're going to go right from scratch, everything you need, what order they go in, all of that. So it's going to be a good one. All right, before you get started, I'm just coming to the overhead here, so I'm just on my phone just to give you a rundown on some of this stuff. But before you get started, you're going to need some way to power those pedals. They don't ship with any kind of power supply attached, so it can be a little bit confusing when you get one in the mail and you don't have a way to plug it in. So you can order individual power supplies, power units for them. When you come to a pedal board situation, you're going to need a multi-out power supply like this one. This one comes from Donner, and it's actually a really good one. I was surprised how good these are. So over here under my desk, you can't see it, but I actually have one hard mounted to my desk. So I bought another one for my portable pedal board, which is really cool because they're quite affordable. So when you look at it, you can see these are all center negative pins. You can see center negative pins. Okay, this does come with an adapter to plug it into the wall, and usually a handful of leads that you can run out to your pedals. Now, there are a couple of things though that are really important to recognize. First of all, this takes an 18 volt adapter, not a 9 volt adapter. Okay, so you can't use a regular pedal power to run this. It needs 18 volts in order to run all of these leads. As you run down the line here, you'll see this says 100 milliamps, and then this is 500 milliamps. There are two more outputs down here that are 12 and 18 volts respectively. Some large digital and MIDI pedals use, and also some older models, will use 12 or 18 volts as opposed to a 9 volt power source. So you need to be careful. Don't use these unless you're actually using another unit that takes 18 or 12 volts. You can use this to power another similar power supply because, as you can see, 18 volts in. Recommended, not necessarily. It's better to have them isolated, but sometimes you can't do that. So sometimes this is your way out. So you can daisy chain that. Now, what these MA or milliamp ratings mean is how much power is available. So how much power the pedal is actually drawing towards it. When it comes to most pedals, most of them are 100 milliamp pedals, okay? Some of them, like my large preamp pedal, actually requires a 500 milliamp output, all right? So we don't necessarily have 8 outputs, we maybe have 7. Now a typical pedal, especially a mini pedal, might only draw 25 to 30 of those 100 milliamps. This just tells you how much energy is available. So if I try to plug a 500 milliamp pedal into a 100 milliamp lead, I won't get any power. It wants more power than this can supply. So you need to be aware of what your pedals actually need. It happens that all of the pedals on my Donner board take 100 milliamps, but if you'll recall, I have more pedals than there are leads here. Okay, so what do? Well, the way I will set this up is that most of my pedals will come off of these individual 100 milliamp leads, but I will need to take this 500 milliamp lead and run it into a daisy chain that actually connects 5 pedals to this one output. So that's going to give me a total of 12. Right? Give me a total of 12 possible leads coming off of here. That's going to save me some space. I might have to do a couple on battery just for the sake of the demo. And be sure when you're counting and you're kind of stacking these things that you do have enough power around. I might even have to use 2 power supplies just to run this demo, just because there are enough pedals on there to do that. But also keep in mind, I'm not going to plug in the looper, and the volume pedal on this rig happens to be passive, so it's not powered. So make sure you get a power supply so that you can actually plug all of these pedals in. Now I'm going to set it up and I'm going to walk you through the pedal board itself. Okay, what I've done is I've set up kind of the typical way you would do a larger pedal board, even with mini pedals, just in the general order you would typically do it in. So I'm just going to walk you through, and then we'll set this up. You can see I've got some cables at the ready, a couple of power supplies there ready to go. All right, and we're not going to do a fancy clipping job. We're just going to run this as if it were just a straight line from the guitar to the amplifier out the other end. Okay, so over here at the very beginning, we start with the cleanest tone we can. That's straight from the guitar into the tuner. Okay, the tuner needs as clean a signal as you can get. This is a true bypass tuner, which means when you step on it, it turns the tuner on, no signal goes through. So nobody has to listen to you tune your guitar. All right, we're going to go from that into a buffer. Now what a buffer does is it actually stops when you've got a long cable. And remember, every time you add a pedal, the cable gets a little bit longer. You get sort of a tone suck. So you lose some of the tone of your guitar, and the buffer actually prevents that tone loss from happening. It happens to be that Donner's Vowel, this is the Vowel Mini, right? Donner's Vowel Mini volume and wah-wah pedal combined is also a buffered circuit. So when it's just here, it acts as a buffer. So we actually have one built in. So for a board like this will do just fine. This is also the best spot for your wah-wah pedal because it's going to attenuate that bass to treble sound that's going to feed through the rest of your rig. As a volume pedal in this position, it just acts like the volume control on your guitar. So if you run the volume down, it's just like turning the volume down on your guitar. You won't get a full signal through these pedals. Sometimes you might want that. Personally, I leave the volume all the way up, and then it just clicks on to go to the wah-wah setting and then back again. Following that, again, we want things as clean as possible. So low impedance pedals and pitch shifters. This is the Harmonic Square, okay, which is an octave splitter. It's actually an interval splitter, but I like to keep it on the octave. Gets a nice clean signal. And then I've actually got these two reversed, so I'm going to swap these. Let's wait for this. There we go. Okay, the Fuzz, in this case the stylish Fuzz, comes next because it doesn't need a lot of other fancy stuff in front of it. Okay, you want to go in as clean as you can into the Fuzz pedal. I don't use a lot of fuzz, but we're going to leave it on this board anyway. What you heard with that rip is the Velcro, the hook side of the Velcro. And you can see here I've added some gaffer tape. So gaffer tape allows me to remove the Velcro without doing a lot of damage to the paint. And gaffer tape doesn't leave residue on the pedal either. So if you're switching pedals quite a bit, you just have to pull the gaffer tape off and you're back to normal. And in fact, it will go on even the rubber bottom. So cover that with gaffer tape and then put the Velcro on and it'll stay nice and secure. Okay, so next up is a compressor, and the compressor's job is to take the high peaks and squish them down. The high peaks in your sound waves, squish them down so that when you want to play softly, you can turn it up louder without over clipping the signal. So very handy to have. Basically, it acts like a boost in many cases. And you can use it as a boost, but that's not its job. Its job is to level off your signal so that you don't have huge spikes in volume when you play a little bit harder, especially on clean tones. If you watch my last video on pedal order where I talked about where to put your overdrive, I like my blues drive here because it cleans up the bottom end and tightens things up for these two. This is a Plexi style or a Marshall style distortion, and this is a metal muff style distortion. This is a high gain distortion that is great for metal. Okay, excuse me. So this is actually one of my favorite distortion pedals. I use it a lot. Okay, so I always go overdrive, mid gain distortion, high gain distortion. Sometimes I'll put another overdrive if I want a boost. In this case, I don't. Okay, and then this always feeds in this direction. And behind this, I put the noise killer. And the noise killer clamps down on extra noise, extra hiss, extra hum that comes from these guys. Okay, but it also gives me a little extra punch when I'm playing things that are really kind of crunchy and metal sounding. Okay, from this point, you could run all of this direct into the front of your amplifier, and then all of this into the effects loop if you have an effects loop on your amplifier, or you can just keep the chain going into the clean channel on your amplifier. Next up, we have the modulation section. Here I'm using the Tootie Love Chorus. Also included in modulation, you could have a phaser or a flanger or a tremolo, all of which are available on Donner, or from Donner rather. And from here I go into a volume pedal. So this volume pedal acts like a master volume control for all of this. So whereas this one stops the, this one controls the volume going into the chain. This one controls the volume going out of the chain. So this one here in this position makes more sense. Even if it's in the effects loop, it will act like a master volume for your whole board. And we put it before the time-based section so that the time-based section still echoes even when you're at a lower volume. Okay, I don't have this one plugged stuck down, and I probably won't just now. Some of these are part of my permanent rig, that's why they already have Velcro on them. Okay. Following the volume pedal, we go into a digital type delay, and this one, it has a little bit of fluff on it. This one is a multi-delay. Okay, and I think I've already done a review of this one, I think. By the time this video comes out anyway. We've got digital, analog, tape, a modulated delay, which has a little bit of flange on it, a sweep delay, a lo-fi delay, which is kind of a variation on a tape delay, and then a reverse delay. So these are more special effects delays. My tendency on this pedal is to stay down at the digital level because this is an analog delay. So this is for more of a vintage sound. You don't always run them together, but you can have them on the board rigged up at the same time depending on what your gig looks like. And we close all of that out with a reverb. And this is honestly one of the best reverbs you can get in this market. It's fantastic. At this point in the chain, you want to drop in your looper. If you're using a looper, excuse me, if you're using a looper, this you want to have all of your effects because it's basically acting like a mini recorder. So each time you record a loop, you want to patch in whatever effects you're using, record the loop, play it, patch in the next thing that you're playing, and all of that's going to go to your amplifier. When I set this up, just to show you how it wires up, I will not be using this, so I'm going to take that out. I'm just saving some space here. I will probably take out the analog delay and the looper. So that's going to save me a couple of spaces on my power supply. Alright, so we'll be able to run, if we count them off, we already know we have 8 100 milliamp or 7 100 milliamp slots and 1 500 milliamp slot. That one is going to turn into 5, so we've got 7 plus 5 is 12. If we count them off, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. This is passive, so it doesn't plug in. 10, 11. So we will have enough slots for that. So we're going to fire this up. We're going to plug it all in, and I'm going to show you how everything routes to the power supply and the cable lines, and then we're going to maybe record a little bit and just see what it sounds like. Okay, I have this all set up now, and I'm going to put this down on the floor. It doesn't have a line out yet because my laptop's not ready to record, and I don't have anything plugged in here, obviously. But we've got here, you can see, basically plugs 2 through 7 are 100 milliamp plugs, and then plug 8, the 500 milliamp plug is actually doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the top row as a daisy chain. Excuse me. This is not the tidiest or the prettiest rig I've ever done, but it's just temporary, and it's not custom, obviously. One thing that does happen, and this is why you want to stick these down with Velcro if you can, is it can kind of pull these mini pedals. The cords can kind of pull these mini pedals around a little bit. So, you know, try to get them Velcroed down. I haven't, because this is not how my board is going to be eventually. All right, and I have a few different styles of plugs. These are the older Donner patch cables with the plastic ends. Not my favorite. They do the job, but they are not my favorite. I actually like these ones with the square ends, but they are a bit on the longish side. They're about a foot long, which is more than I need to go from here to here. So it just adds extra length for no reason. And also these flathead ones are really nice because they don't take up very much space. You can get your pedals much closer together. So just some ideas on cabling. You can also buy lengths of cable and just replace the heads, right? So you can make this custom lengths if you want to do that. It's one of the things that I do for clients is custom wire pedal boards. So it wouldn't look like this kind of, well, rat's nest of cables, right? And this one here, which has to connect all the way from here, is not a Donner cable. It's just a 3-foot cable that I had lying around because none of my other patch cords are long enough to go from there to there. So I'm going to put this on the floor and we're going to try it out and see how it sounds. And for that, we're going to be using a Donner guitar as well. So stay tuned.
And that's it. I hope you enjoyed that little demo there. I kind of played around. Sorry, kind of played around a little bit, tested out a few different combinations. We'll see how the sound goes when we mix it all down. But I think, you know, it's a really good rig. It's not a metal rig. It's not a rock rig. This rig in particular has most of what you need for just about every application. Tuner, wah-wah pedal, some kind of fuzz, overdrive, distortion. That's your main line, sort of like bucket brigade stuff. And then on the back end, some kind of modulation, in this case a chorus, a delay, and a reverb. And that's really all you need to get a really good variety of sounds out of your pedal board. You can add in, you know, 2 or 3 different distortions or a couple of different overdrives if you're playing a lot of covers and you want to get different tones. I do that with my main board, which is a much bigger variation of this, where I've got, you know, 2 or 3 different distortions and a couple of overdrives. But really, if you just want to get out and gig, this board will do everything you need on stage or in the studio or even just in your practice room. So I just went straight into my recording software. In fact, I was using the Fortin Cali suite from Neural DSP, just straight into a clean channel, which is what you would do with something like this. Go into the front clean channel on your amplifier and you're good to go. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you liked it, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe, and by all means, please consider becoming a member of the channel. That way we can push these videos out a little bit faster and with a little bit more detail, because we'll have more time to work on them. So until next time, I hope I'll see you again really soon, and have yourselves a great, I guess it's Thanksgiving in Canada this weekend. So have yourselves a great Thanksgiving, and have yourselves a great Thanksgiving everywhere else next month. Bye for now.